and welcome to the Industry 4 Community Podcast, sponsored by the Prove It Conference 2025. I am your host with the most, Walker D. Reynolds. We're actually live for the first time in forever. I got Zach with me. We put this together quickly. I've been working on an analysis of the Gartner IIoT Platform Magic Quadrant over the last 24 hours. As you could probably tell, it's been fucking hilarious. And I'm actually working on our own quadrant. I wanted to publish it today, but I'm actually going to do it on Monday. So we're doing the podcast today. We'll publish it Monday. That way everybody sees it. But I asked Zach to jump in here, and we're going to go through we're going to go through Gartner's report. This is probably going to take us a while because I'm actually going to break down what is an IIoT platform. I'm actually going to talk about what is the process of digital transformation. And like, if you're writing a report like this and you're saying to manufacturers, hey, here is a list of like the game changer, the leaders in IIoT platforms, the industrial Internet of Things platforms. This is a list of them. Here's a quadrant, and here are the leaders, and here are your visionaries and your niche players, and here are the people who are on the come up. You should probably get it right. I mean, you should probably at least have the right names on there. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about like how this process works. And, you know, a bunch of people have said to me like, hey, Walker, why are you even giving these guys publicity? Listen, I wouldn't be doing this if we didn't hear from executives all the time. Well, they're not on the quadrant, or executives will say, well, tell me about this platform that was on the quadrant this year. It's like, what are you going to say to the executive? Why are you listening to Gartner? Like, you know, why are you listening to Forrester, for example? Like in this case, we're going to pick on Gartner. And I'm going to tell you how this works. I own 50 companies, both Intellic Integration and 4.0 Solutions, which you guys are all familiar with. I'm the chairman for both of those companies, even though I'm currently selling Intellic Integration. I get emails from Gartner. I actually published one of the emails in a LinkedIn thread showing you that Gartner essentially says, we want you to pay us for us to recommend you to our end users, and we'll justify why we're recommending you. Like, it is all pay for play. It's a complete racket. There is nothing about it that is like legitimate in any way, shape, or form. It is literally a racket. And why do I care? I care because manufacturers and industry in the United States employ the middle class. And the middle class are the ones who build this country. And manufacturers over the last 40 or 50 years have been destroyed in the United States. And the so-called leaders, the so-called technical leaders, they've partially gotten destroyed because the leaders haven't led. What they've done is they've exploited, Gartner included. Okay. And these are my opinions, and I'm going to lay it all out. Okay. I'm going to lay it all out here. But Zach, I brought you in. Thank you for jumping.
But Walker,
yeah,
I said I was going to play devil's advocate. We need to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
How is what we're doing at Prove It different than what Gartner does with the Magic Quadrant? Because, one could say Prove It is pay to play. The vendors that we're, featuring have paid to be there. How is what we're doing at Prove It different?
Sure. Yesterday, a couple of CEOs of IIoT platforms reached out to me. Okay. 3 of them. I had conversations with 3. I'm not going to mention who they are because I didn't ask for permission to mention their names. But I'll tell you what I said to one of the CEOs of one of the platforms. I said he actually wanted to warn me. He was just like, hey, listen, Gartner might sue you. If you come out with a quadrant, don't call it a quadrant. They might sue you. Be careful. And I said, no worries. I'm going to make sure our legal looks at my post before I do it. And, honestly, I wouldn't mind being sued because through discovery, I'd be able to reveal, our legal team would be able to get a lot of stuff out into the public sphere about what goes on behind the scenes. We could get that in discovery. And not just little news flash out here. I'm going to eventually do that one of these days. I'm going to literally set aside probably 5 million to cover legal fees, and I'm going to bait one of the big guys to sue me, and we're going to expose them in discovery. I mean, I'll literally spend that money to expose what goes on behind the scenes, because once it's in the public sphere, it's not protected. Like if it's part of litigation, not protected. But
Michael Brown said, "Do the industry 4 octagon."
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something. I'm not going to call it a quadrant, but I want to tell you what
Pentagon.
I want to answer your question about Prove It, because it's true. We have Prove It in February. We have 35 vendor sponsors. All the spots are filled, and we have a waiting list. We had our steering committee meeting yesterday, and all of those vendors, we're going to announce the title sponsor on Monday, and it's a big name. It's a huge name, and they're paying. Okay, so the gold sponsor is spending
tens of thousands of dollars.
I think
up to $100,000 probably on the high end for the title.
So when you look, it goes you have from triple 6 digits all the way down to 4 digits. You have people spending, the bronze sponsors are why are we charging? Well, because this conference, I think our number now is 650,000.
Over $500,000.
So the conference is costing us right now, that's before we've spent anything, 650 grand. What we are doing is we are asking the vendors to pay that number, because our expertise is we're going to challenge them, right? So we're asking them to pay that number, and then they are going to get a chance. We're not going to make the judgment as to whether or not I'm not going to say you guys are awesome because you gave us money. No, we're going to challenge you because you helped supported this conference. You're going to get an opportunity to prove what actually happens. And when I'm going to walk through this quadrant, and I'm going to ask, there's a proposal here. I'm going to say one of the rules for an IoT platform is, if you're an IoT platform, you should do this basic, simple use case quickly. You should be able to connect to a Rockwell PLC, a legacy PLC. You should be able to connect to an existing MySQL database. You should be able to connect to the Infor CMMS REST API easily. You should be able to connect to an MQTT broker. Okay. You should be able to analyze and visualize data from those sources. Okay. And you should be able to find patterns. Okay. That's what you should be able to do. I'm going to walk through each of these platforms, and I'm going to ask you, how do you do those things with each of these platforms? Okay, how do you do those things? There are examples in this quadrant where that's not what I just gave you as an example is not fucking possible at all. Like they have a company on here that makes edge devices, and that's it. That's not a platform. Okay, but because they paid the money, they got on there. And then there are obvious platforms that are missing. Like what is the most popular open source IIoT platform in the world?
Node-RED.
It's Ming. It is Mosquito, InfluxDB, Node-RED, Grafana, and then bolt a bunch of stuff onto the side. Literally, there is no larger install base in the world of any IIoT platform than Ming. What is the second most popular in the world?
Open architecture or open source?
Now let's go commercial. What is
inductive automation?
It's inductive automation. Ignition, without question, is the number one IIoT platform in the world. Even for any of the come-uppers, right? You look at Litmus Automation. Litmus Automation is a come-upper. It is Tulip has limitations. What I would do with Tulip is I'd go, hey, Tulip is a come-upper. They're not quite what I would call a platform yet, but they're adding in features that will make them a platform.
ThingWorx, PTC?
I would argue that ThingWorx set out to be a platform, but it's really a dashboarding tool, right? But then here's another huge one that's missing. Here's a huge one that's missing.
Maestro Hub or HighByte?
Well, HighByte would be a subset of a platform. Like you would take HighByte and you would connect it with other things. to make it a platform. I'm going to explain what an IoT platform is and what the minimum requirements are, the things you must be able to do in order for you to be called a platform. Okay. So if you take high byte with other thing and create a stack out of it, that becomes a platform.
Got
right?
Yeah.
Okay. But there are things that are just off the shelf that are a platform. And by the way, inductive automation is like the fucking gold standard. Like literally the gold standard. And they are not in the way upper right-hand corner. I want one person. I want anybody to tell me that inductive automation, that Ignition is not the number one IIoT platform in the world. I want one person. One.
So
Anybody
you're saying it's not objective. They're paying for the recommendation,
of course,
as opposed to just paying to get access to the battlegrounds.
And what's ridiculous is they continue to do this. It's absurd, and it hurts the industry. But I want to answer your question on Prove It. This is what I said to that executive. Okay, I said he and I went back and forth a bunch, and I said, I'm only going to read what I said, nothing he wrote me, but I said, hey, he reached out and I said, I appreciate you, brother. No worries. Legal will review the post before I drop it. I'm including a complete analysis of their report and criteria to give full context along with the criteria I'm using on IoT platform. And then I said, Microsoft nuked Azure IoT last year. Fucking nuked it. And in Microsoft's own words, the reason they nuked Azure IoT was because no one bought it. Remember Clemens Vaster, who's one of the architects there, and I asked him what happened to Azure IoT, and they said no one bought it. No, it was because it was garbage. Okay, Microsoft has been on this Magic Quadrant. They're on the fucking quadrant again as a leader, and last year they nuked Azure IoT.
What are they leading with?
How the hell are they a fucking leader?
Their shit is down right now.
How is Microsoft a leader?
Are we even live on LinkedIn? Like, is the servers?
How is Microsoft a leader when they threw away their platform last year because no one bought it? Tell me that. And I'm it's like literally, how do you justify that? How is it you justify putting? Is it Exazit? No, it's the Italian one. Eurotech. Eurotech's not a platform, guys. Eurotech is a couple of Italian guys who have like 80 customers. They are not an IIoT platform. And then inductive automation is an honorable mention hidden in the report, but not on the quadrant. And you have the balls to tell me this is not pay for play, which I know it is.
So that means inductive automation potentially didn't pay to be on the quadrant, but they knew that if they had this list but didn't mention them, it would be bullshit.
I know they didn't pay because I checked. Okay, I reached out to the vendors that weren't there and just asked them. I just asked them. Okay,
so it's not transparent.
Well, right. Not only that, one of the executives, actually two of the executives, told me what Gartner does is they're very careful in their wording. Actually, two of them almost told me the exact same thing, which is they'll in the proposal. So this is the vendor, the CEOs of the vendors. They say in the proposal, you're going to be paying us that money for access to our analysts. That's what they say. They say, and by the way, it's around 250 grand. Give or take. You can spend a little less, you can spend more, but in ballpark, everybody on that list has spent about $250,000, give or take. Here's what I told him. I said to that vendor, I said, Microsoft nuked Azure IoT last year and went back to the drawing board, and they're a leader. It's preposterous. I said, and this is what Prove It is all about: cutting through the noise and connecting problems to actual solutions in context of actual value. Like when we do Prove It next year, it's going to be from the beginning of the week to the end of the week. You're going to see a journey, 35 vendors, one infrastructure. And we're going to meet with the manufacturer whose plant we're using as the example. So we're going to recreate their plant virtually at Prove It. We have the meeting on Monday. We've already gotten tentative approval to use, but we're going to use a real manufacturing facility that has a unified namespace today.
It's almost like we're doing the NHL draft or something with this year's top picks of IIoT platforms, but they actually have to be recruited and scouted and prove their value.
And by the way, you look at this Magic Quadrant, there's one company on there. Actually, I think there's two. There's two because there's two companies on there who have the guts to come and do prove it. That there's two of them on the Magic Quadrant.
No shit.
Yeah, and who have the guts to come. Litmus is one of them. Okay, Litmus will be there, and I just got to make sure Amazon Web Services. But I'm pretty sure Amazon.
We can't announce sponsors yet.
We can't announce.
This is unofficial.
It's all unofficial. Yes, because we promised we would announce the titles first. All right. So anyway, that was my point. Let's get into the Magic Quadrant. Zach, Josh, will you show the quadrant?
Are we able to show it on the stream?
Yeah, absolutely. The image itself we can share. I'm going to read the report, but I can't show the report. Josh, you have a screenshot of the.
Honestly, I think the IoT analytics report is arguably more valuable. That shows like what executives are talking about in their earnings reports. Like increasing in importance, decreasing in importance. Like,
okay, all right. Well, I thought you had it as a regular image. That you're just going to share. All right. So this is the quadrant that you see here. So Gartner has selected the 3 leaders in IIoT platforms are Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, and Software AG. Okay. Microsoft is not an IoT platform. It's a fucking company. Okay. It's a company that has like hundreds and hundreds of businesses. Okay. They can't put Azure IoT there because Microsoft threw it away, but they wanted to take Microsoft's money. So they just put Microsoft's name on there. Okay. Now, does Microsoft have a new reference architecture? And yes, but are they a leader? No. In fact, of the 3 big cloud providers, Amazon Web Services, Azure, and Azure from Microsoft, and Google Cloud, Amazon, it goes in order. It goes Google Cloud number 1 now. Hate to break the news to you. Google Cloud number 1, Amazon Web Services number 2, Microsoft a very, 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 very distant third.
Google's not even on there?
Google's not even on the list. Okay, which is crazy because if you go to Google Cloud, so Google Cloud uses Litmus Automation for its edge component. So Google Cloud uses Litmus is on the list as a niche player. Google Cloud uses.
Would you say they're niche or would you say they're up and coming?
I would say they're up and coming. I would say they're challengers. I would say Litmus belongs in the challengers list. We're going to go through this. I'm going to go through their actual report and I'm going to read it to you. But let's start out with what they say is an IoT platform. So Josh, you can go ahead and drop it here. If you guys are listening to the podcast and we're not going to share our screen other than that one image there. Josh, make sure you keep track of any of the questions that I might need to answer live. All right. So Magic Quadrant, this is written by Scott Kim, Emil Berthelsen, and 6 other people. Came out on April 29th of 2024. And it starts with global IIoT platforms are becoming the enterprise industrial data aggregator with advanced analytics capabilities to enable industrial data integration. CIOs and software leaders implementing IIoT platforms to connect traditional OT software systems with IT solutions will learn about which vendors do this best. Okay, first off, that's not what an IoT platform is. Here is what an IoT platform is. Okay, just so we know where my critique is coming from. After 25 years of doing digital transformation, half of it working for the end user, the other half of it working for the largest companies in the world, and then teaching people how to do this. We have 200, my integrator has 240 something clients, 250 something clients, and our retention rate with those clients is like 98.6 something percent. And we've fired 4 of them. 4 of the ones that we no longer work with, we fired. Okay.
And we got over 100 people in the live.
It is a long track record of successful digital transformation. Here is an IIoT platform. Now, an IoT platform does not have to be one piece of software. It can be a piece of software or a stack of software, but you define the stack. Okay. the stack of software or the piece of software, and it's software running either in an operating system or running as an operating system on an edge device, okay? It does these things. It connects, it collects, it stores, it analyzes, and it visualizes data, okay? So that you can find patterns, you can report problems, and you can solve problems on one common digital infrastructure with a single source of truth. That we call that the unified namespace. Okay, you don't have to call it a UNS, but it has to have a single source of truth.
Litmus just dropped their product, Litmus UNS.
Litmus UNS, right? Here's the other thing it must do. It must be built on an architecture that is edge-driven, report by exception, lightweight, and open architecture. And here is a really good standard. I already gave it to you earlier. A proof of concept would be something like this with your platform. I'm going to connect to a Rockwell PLC. I'm going to connect to an Opto22 Groove Epic. Rockwell PLC, which is legacy. Groove Epic, which is not. Okay, it's edge-driven, report by exception, lightweight over MQTT or Spark-Plug-B. Either way, you're going to connect to both of those. You are going to connect to a MySQL database or a Postgres or a SQL Server, but we're going to use MySQL here. You're going to connect to a REST API. So in this case, we're going to connect to a maintenance management system Infor CMMS over their REST API. You're going to connect to SAP ERP. Okay, so you're going to connect through a business connector. Okay, and you are going to be able to you're going to be able to train models on that data. Okay, you're going to be able to visualize dashboards. And then above that, you are going to be able to train models on that data. And then you're going to be able to predict the future. That is a very simple use case for an IIoT platform. Okay? But that is what a platform is. An IoT platform connects, collects, stores, analyzes, visualizes, finds patterns, reports, and solves on one common infrastructure. That's what it is. Okay? So let's go through the market definition. Go ahead, Zach. Did you say something?
Well, so like if you were to take, EMQX, they have their broker, but they also have a platform like Neuron is their edge platform, and they're trying to build an ecosystem around their broker, or like also like HiveMQs too, and building a platform around a broker with an edge component. Would you say that qualifies as an IIoT platform, or is it missing one of the components?
It's missing a few of them. So, for example, EMQX is never focused on
visualize.
Well, not focused on visualize, but let's go down even further. You must be able to control your process to do control closed loop automation, business automation. Remember, Industry 3 was the automation of industrial processes. That's when PLCs come in, inputs, outputs, logic, and we write out and we control the process. The Industry 4, the fourth industrial revolution, is about automating business decisions. But automating business decisions sits on top of automating industrial processes. If your IIoT platform does not have the ability to write control commands out to your OT network, then you're not a platform. And by the way, EMQX doesn't do that. So but that doesn't mean that they're not close. They wouldn't be close to a platform. It's just they are a subset. They're not the platform.
Got it.
Okay? All right. So this version of the Magic Quadrant uses data gathered as early as April 2023. In February 24, Gartner collected refreshed data to ensure we used accurate and up-to-date information for the execution axis. We did not collect any other data regarding the vision axis because Gartner believes a longer time frame is needed to vendors to bring their vision to the market, specifically for new products offerings to be sold, embraced, and fully integrated in delivering value. It's kind of ridiculous. They'll say the one thing is like, we're not going to judge their vision because it takes time, but we are going to judge you on whether or not you have 400,000 IoT devices out in the world. So, which also takes time. Okay. So the idea that Gartner can eliminate certain people, but also eliminate some. So that's going to be the smaller emerging players. They want to eliminate them from consideration, but they also don't want to punish organizations like Microsoft, who literally threw Azure IoT out the fucking window last year and announced a completely new offering last summer. Okay. If they were to do that, let's say they didn't have that line in there about we're not going to judge on vision because it takes time to see it come to, then Microsoft would have scored much lower. Okay. By the way, that language doesn't exist in last year's report. All right. This document was revised on April 29, 2024. It just basically says there was a correction. The global industrial IoT platform delivers multiple integrations to industrial OT assets and other asset-intensive enterprises, industrial data sources to aggregate, curate, and deliver contextualized insights that enable intelligent applications and dashboards through an edge-to-cloud architecture. Okay, so if I take that and I go, hey, Zach, what does that mean? How different? Tell me what I'm going to give you 5 different pieces of software, and I want you to judge the 5 different pieces of software on that criteria and tell me whether this piece of software or this suite of software is an IoT platform. Let me read it again. Their definition is the global industrial IoT platform delivers multiple integrations to industrial OT assets and other asset-intensive enterprises' industrial data sources to aggregate, curate, and deliver contextualized insights that enable intelligent applications and dashboards through an edge-to-cloud architecture. What is an intelligent application and dashboard?
It sounds like they're saying connect, collect, store, and but just much more complicated.
Well, why is it not? We need to be able to connect to OT IT. We need to be able to collect data and information. We need to be able to store data and information. We need to be able to analyze data and information. We need to be able to visualize data and information. Okay. Then we need to be able to find patterns in that data and information. Then we need to be able to predict problems, report on problems. And then we need to be able to solve those problems, mitigate them. So if I predict that a bearing is going to fail, I have to have the ability to also intervene in the failure. For example, doing something like our next downtime period, our next weekly shutdown is six days, 11 hours from now, and we are predicting a bearing failure on this head pulley in the next 48 hours. Therefore, the intervention is we must flag that. We must notify there's going to be a failure and either schedule a repair between now and 48 hours from now or move our shutdown period up. But there needs to be an intervention. Okay. Nothing about their definition aligns. Well, not nothing. That definition does not align with what an industrial IoT platform is. Okay. Number 2, the global industrial Internet of Things platform market exists because of the core capabilities of integrated middleware software that support a multi-vendor marketplace of intelligent applications to facilitate and automate asset management decision-making. IIoT platforms also provide operational visibility and control for plants. That's correct. Infrastructure and equipment. That's also correct.
It's like they're trying so hard not to say built on a unified namespace or
common use cases are augmentation of industrial automation. What is augmentation of industrial automation?
I would say automating business problems.
Well, what is augmenting? Augmenting is making better, right? Okay, so what is making better industrial automation? Is that a use case? Does a client ever come to you and go, hey, I want you to augment our industrial automation?
No, they say, I want you to connect this stuff together.
What I'm going to say is I want to be able to see this in real time. I'm blind. Oh, here's what I want. I don't want my supervisors having to walk the plant floor to find out the status of our business. I want to see our status relative to plan in real time.
How are people still doing this in 2024?
Here's why. You want to know why? I'll tell you why. What percentage of you watching this video right now or listening to this podcast right now, how many of you have actually worked on the plant floor? How many of you have actually worked in operations for an extended period of time and you understand how manufacturing actually works?
But Walker.
How many of you came straight out of college and went to go work for a consultancy firm? Like, think about this. Think about where
Industry for influencers don't care about having experience. They just want to have a voice, and that should be enough, Walker.
But you asked the question, why are people still doing this? Well, the answer is because people are still hiring companies like Deloitte. They're still hiring companies
who have no manufacturing experience.
Right. They have literally, I mean, you have engineers who come straight out of college and they go directly to Deloitte, and then Deloitte sells their hours as subject matter expert consultants. What the fuck are they an expert in? Literally, what are you an expert in? And what are you,
at that point?
And what are you consulting me on? Like, legitimately. Like, if I want consultation, let's say I'm going to go to an accountant. Like right now, I'm getting ready. I bought a ranch in East Texas. Okay. It's completely undeveloped. Okay. And I am selling one of my companies to the employees. And I have to figure out how do I use my money wisely so that I don't waste it? That's not my expertise. How do I make my investment in this ranch, the development of this ranch, in a way where I don't pay out the ass in taxes? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go hire a consultant, an expert, who's going to tell me, who has experience in this, who's going to tell me, hey, Walker, what you should do is you should create a company. And that company should be a limited liability partnership. And it should be you and your sons. And what you should do is you should take this money when it comes out, you set aside the capital gains here, you put it into this fund, and then what you'll do is you will fund a checking account for that LLC, and for the first 5 years while you're building the ranch, you're going to run a loss every single year. You're going to claim these things on your expenses. Like, that's what a consultant does. And a consultant does it from a place of experience. That, to answer your question, why are people still doing this day? Because the vast majority of people who are presenting themselves as experts have no fucking idea what
they're just doing what has already been done.
They are fucking making it up. And when the market is full of people who are lost, especially we're in this kaikaku phase, right? Between digital transformation. I was just talking about this. I'll get back to this, but this is an important conversation. I had a conversation with a client, or he's not a client. I think he was. I think we consulted for him. He reached out and he said, "Hey, I'd like to have a meeting with." It was me and executives from 2 other companies, and then our team, and we were discussing how do we write a standard for unified namespace. But the conversation turned into he's really struggling to get traction with digital transformation in his organization. Not UNS, not UNS, but just digital transformation.
A lot of people are.
And I had to say to him, I had to tell him, you know, I'm worried for you. I told him this. I said, I'm really concerned. I said, not in a business, in a personal capacity. You look like you're ready to put a gun in your mouth. Like you're just banging your head against the wall here. I decided 2 years ago your company's going broke. I decided 2 years ago your company's going to get sold off in pieces. And by the way, the company he works for is one of the largest companies in the world. And I made the decision 2 years ago, you're getting sold off in pieces. Okay. And so I'm not investing in your company. That's what I said. I said, I would not put my efforts towards your company. Those are the types of conversations I'm having to have with people in large organizations who are being misguided and misdirected by people who have no fucking idea what they're talking about. I challenge the analyst. There was an analyst, this guy, hold on, let me do this. There was this guy, here we go. No, not today. It was the post from yesterday. So where this whole thing came from was this lady, Tam E. She's a marketing contractor. She did a post with the quadrant on it. And she said, what's the leading, I encourage you to go take a look at her original post, but she said, what's the leading platform industrial IoT? AWS was recently named a leader in the 2024 Magic Quadrant. By the way, they deserve to be there. Can you do everything you need to do for industrial IoT using only AWS? No, you can't. Could you do for the first 5 years of your digital transformation journey, could you install only Ignition? Now, Ignition Edge, Ignition gateways at each plant, and Ignition running in the cloud. Could you install just Ignition and have Ignition be the only thing in your infrastructure for the first 5 years? No.
You would need SQL Server.
Right. You're going to need SQL Server. You're going to need even though there's an internal database, you would need an external database, right? Could you connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize all the way up the stack with Ignition? Can you do data ops, all those things? Absolutely. Could Litmus be your only choice? Yes, you would be struggling on the visualization side because you'd really be limited to like Grafana's strengths. But could you use Litmus as your only thing for the first 2 years? Yeah, probably. Those are IIoT platforms. You couldn't do that with AWS, by the way. Let me correct myself. You actually could use AWS, but you wouldn't.
Yeah, why would you?
Why you wouldn't do that? Because the cost, the time to value would be pretty long in certain use cases, and the cost would be. But you could do it with AWS. Anyway,
AWS on the back end, it might actually be cheaper.
AWS is a leader. Okay, I'm not here to say that AWS isn't a leader, but I'll tell you AWS. But I'm going to tell you AWS's limitations. I'm going to compare AWS with Google Cloud in this conversation. And I'm going to tell you, like, nuts and bolts, what is a huge fucking difference between the two of them that Amazon's got to fix. Okay? All right. So anyway, I saw this because Rick was being Rick, and Rick, what was his thing? He said, he goes, she was putting the quadrant like it was a good thing. And Rick goes, except Gartner wouldn't know an IIoT platform from a loaf of bread. Complete garbage analysis from them on this topic. By the way, he's 1,000% right. Gartner does not know what an IIoT platform is. What Gartner did is Gartner leverages the fact that there are large manufacturers that go to them for analysis. They saw an opportunity in IoT, and they created this Magic Quadrant because their customers were like, we need you to advise us on these things. Okay.
So they created a product out of it.
So they created a product to sell to people who wanted to be on the quadrant. Okay. So that they could.
Tiffany is saying no one is paying to get on the quadrant.
That's not true, Rob. That is absolutely not true, Rob.
Rob used to work at Microsoft. I mean,
Rob, that is absolutely not true. Tiffany, I love you, dude. We had lunch together. That is not true. It is simply not true. If what you are saying is there a quid pro quo? That is Gartner going to the vendor and saying to the vendor, I want $250,000 and I'll put you on my quadrant. That's not what they do. What they say is, I want $250,000 and I'll give you access to our analysts who will put you on the quadrant. But they don't say they'll put you on the quadrant. They say we're going to give you access to the analysts. Here is what Gartner just sent to me. Okay. Actually, they've been hammering me. Okay.
Be careful, Walker. We're live.
I'm going to. Listen, they sent me the email. I fucking own it. Here we go. So I have 4 emails from the same business development person with the title of Gartner Intellic Integration 2024 Partnership Opportunity and Analyst Engagement. Okay, 4 emails. Let's start with the first one. The first one was on May 30th of this year. Hey, Walker, I am reaching out to understand if Intellic Integration would be a fit to work with our analyst community for thought leadership and strategic insight. Gartner is focusing in 2024 on the unified namespace, automation services, and systems integration space extensively, and has seen considerable increase in buyer demand for the solutions that you provide. I am looking forward to learning more about Intellic Integration and how you may be able to impact and leverage our buyer community demand.
We should do it.
Hold on.
Let's do it.
Hold on. Do you have availability for a call next week? Now, that email sounds totally harmless. It sounds like they want me to consult with them on how to guide their customers, correct? That's what it sounds like?
No, it's a sales call to be on the quadrant.
All right, here we go.
or
Here's
to have access to the analysts.
Here's email number 2, and I'm doing this because Rob says no one pays. Okay. Hi, Walker. I am reaching out on behalf of Gartner's Emerging Technology channel to learn more about Intellic integration. So same sales guy, email number 2, 5 days later. Given Gartner has seen an increase in end user demand for the solutions that Intellic integration provides over the past year, I believe it is timely to open up communications between you and the analyst who advises your buyers through vendor evaluation selection in the unified namespace, automation services, and systems integration market through our emerging technology channel.
They really complicate the shit out of it.
Hold on. Do you have availability for a call? So he doesn't ask me to pay to be a customer or anything yet. It still sounds like he wants to connect me with their people through an analyst. All right. Number 3. This is email number 3, 2 days later. Hi, Walker. I'm following up on my previous notes to better understand if Intellic integration would be a fit to work with Gartner's buyer analyst community for thought leadership and strategic insight. Gartner covers the unified namespace, automation services, and systems integration space extensively, and we created a new focus for emerging providers like Intellic integration. I'm looking forward to learning more about your company and how you might be able to impact our buy-side community. That is, how I can connect you with the people we tell to buy stuff.
That was definitely a drip sequence. And did you use the FU word? I'm following up, FU.
And here is the last one. Okay, here's the last email. June 11th, when he obviously gave up.
Did he do I'm breaking up? Did he do this is the last email?
No, what he said was, hi, Walker. I hope this note finds you well. I am following through on my previous notes to better understand if Intellic integration would be a fit to be a Gartner client. We have seen an increase in demand within our end user client base for the solutions that Intellic integration provides. And in bold letters, not only are we advising your potential buyers on vendor selection in your space, but Gartner also sees you as a strong fit within our new emerging provider channel due to your size and ability to scale. Do you have ability for a call? He is clearly saying that we want you to pay us to advise our customers to use your services. That is clearly what he is saying. So, Rob Tiffany, do you want to try again? Rob, I love you. Okay,
we should do it.
Right.
We should become a Gartner client.
No,
but then expose it.
Yeah. By the way, Hitachi nuked Lumada and no longer on the queue, while Microsoft didn't actually nuke Azure IoT. Most of all of the employees in that product group were laid off. Yeah, but here's the important point. How can Microsoft be a leader if the thing that they were a leader for last year got blown up because no one bought it?
Well, what are they leading?
What are they leading? That's my question.
Except for the headlines today for being out of service.
Microsoft was a leader last year on the quadrant. Okay? They were a leader last year. And then they threw away their IoT platform and started over after 10,000 people, not all of them in Azure IoT, but a lot of them in Azure IoT, got laid off.
What's the new flavor of the month for Azure IoT, IoT Edge, IoT Core?
No, they got a couple of different names. But the point is they call it Fabric. It's their Fabric thing. The point is, Rob Tiffany. The point is that Hitachi was on the list last year. And they decided to move away from their platform because no one bought it. No one bought it.
So how are they leading?
How were they on the fucking list? How were they on the list? Meanwhile, inductive automation has fundamentally changed the market since 2002. From 2002 to 2008, factory PMI was just a SCADA platform. They did a complete rebuild and a rebrand in 2008. And from 2008 to 2012, when they came out with templates and user-defined data types, and then Colby Clegg wrote the web dev module in a fucking weekend. Colby wrote the web dev module in a fucking weekend. They became an IIoT platform. And then in 2014, when Arlen Nipper went to ICC and wrote the first Cirrus Links modules, which they wrote in 3 days.
I think it's 15, but
no, it's 14 when they started, 15 when they presented.
Got it.
And wrote the modules in 3 days. Now they became the de facto platform. They went from less than 1% market share in 2012 to over 30% market share in North America. The number one conversion in the world. To this day, the number one conversion is what? From what platform to what platform?
Wonderware to Ignition.
From Wonderware to Ignition. I want someone to give me an example where you've gone from in Ignition to system platform or to another Aviva. I want one example. Guess what?
It probably does exist somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure there's a fucking one-off where there's, but I want to analyze that example.
They had like a homebrew Ignition SCADA, and then a consultant firm came in and did a full upgrade onto
and obviously I'm pissed off about this. And the reason why is it is so clearly a racket. Right. And by the way, the guy there was a former analyst. Let me find the guy's name.
Rob says Google nuked their IoT platform years ago.
No, they didn't.
What's the new one that you're working on? Or what is it?
Google Cloud Services. Here, let's jump right into Google, Amazon, right? Or let's jump into Google right now. All right. What Google did was they went to and partnered with Litmus. What Google said was, you know what? We don't need to build all this stuff. We're really good at Google Cloud. We're really good at integrated cloud services. By the way, if you're working with Google, if you're working in the Google environment, and by the way, I am high on basically 3 big cloud providers. One of them really needs to get their act together. Snowflake has got security issues. They got to fix them. Okay. There's been multiple breaches with Snowflake, 3 of them. The big AT&T one that just happened. AT&T had every one of their customers had a breach. That was a Snowflake breach. They're using Snowflake for customer data. Snowflake has got to fix the security stuff, but that doesn't mean I'm not still high on them. I still believe they're going to fix it. Okay. But obviously what's happening is it's too easy for a bad player to get access to someone's account in Snowflake. It's not, their infrastructure is not vulnerable. What it is it's vulnerable through the users. Okay. And it was a phishing thing that happened with, fucking ID 10T fault. So I'm big on 3 cloud providers. Okay. Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, and Snowflake. Okay. Those are the 3 that I'm big, really huge on. All right. If I were to take Amazon Web Services, which we've been using predominantly for the last 5 years, and then compare to Google, which we just started using really en masse this year, because Google came out with their new manufacturing platform. Okay. And actually Google reached out to us. So hopefully I'm allowed to mention this. I know we're doing a marketing thing, so I'm going to go ahead and mention it. 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, Google reaches out and says, what are we doing wrong? And how do we fix it? And our team worked with Google to build the new MDE infrastructure and what they call Google Cloud.
Framework? Google Cortex Framework?
Cortex Framework. How do we make Cortex Framework more useful for industry? Okay. And so we worked with them on making the workflows seamless. Google adopted Litmus. That wasn't at our recommendation. That was a partnership that Litmus put together. Google's Edge is Litmus Edge. Okay. So it's Litmus is all the integration on the edge. By the way, if you want to know how Litmus is not a leader, do you know how many different platforms are using Litmus? Like Litmus, as a partner, as an edge partner. By the way,
they're more of a challenger.
But they're not a challenger. They are a leader. The reason they're a leader, the reason they're a leader is because people who are trying to get into the market are going to Litmus and they're embedding Litmus Edge inside their platform, and that's doing 80% of the work for them.
If that's not leading, then what?
If that's not leading, what is leading? What is leading? I mean, that's what shows how dumb this is. Okay. All right. Google Cloud, fundamental difference between AWS and Google Cloud is time to value. Okay. They both have horsepower. They both got great features. It's time to value. And it's really simple. This is something an analyst doesn't look at. In AWS, Amazon Web Services is a suite of solutions sitting on top of a common Amazon platform. Amazon has like an environment, a platform. Think of it as the Amazon operating system. And then you have different groups that develop various features, time series, cold storage, warm storage, hot storage, right? Those things all sit on top of the Amazon framework, okay? One of the challenges with Amazon is that you have to wire each of those things together. Let's say I want to use 11 different tools that Amazon Web Services offers, and I want to move my data from left to right through 4 tools linearly to get my data contextualized and normalized. And then I'm going to branch off and I'm going to go down 3 different paths. One's for visualization, one for analytics. But at the end, I'm going to end up with dashboards at the very end. Okay. One for reporting. I have to explicitly connect all those things together. Okay. Myself. With Google, what I do is I create a project scope. And as long as I'm in my Google project scope, any of the Google tools can access the data. So if let's say I create a project called business integration, and I go to Google Object Storage, and I drop 12 CSVs in there, and then I move over to BigQuery, and I open up my console, and I write a little Python script that goes and grabs the Google Cloud Services object storage from my project, and then creates a table in BigQuery from that CSV. That's all native. Everything's connecting. And then I literally can go to Looker Studio and I can grab the data source from BigQuery. I can drop it in and build my dashboard, and everything is wired together already under the project layer. In Amazon, that is much harder to do. It is a step. It is literally a point to point. I got to give explicit permissions. I got to do a whole shitload of stuff using IMAP to make sure that whatever service user has all the permission to make sure it accesses the data it wants. It all has to be explicit. Now, that doesn't mean it's required. There are actually ways to kind of create what Google's done, but it's a lot of work. So Google has the leg up, in my opinion. Here's why. Google uses best-in-class solutions at various layers. I have no doubt Google is going to come up with some partnership with HiByte, and HiByte's going to end up being the data ops layer in Google Cloud Services. I have no doubt, because HiByte is the best at data ops in the world. Okay? That is a platform. Notice Google is not even on this fucking list. Google is not even in the quadrant. And they are by far right now, I would say, if we were going to score on scales of 0 to 100, okay? Google is like a 90. Amazon Web Services is like an 80. And Azure would be like a 25 or a 30. Okay, to put it in perspective. That isn't reflected in this report. What I just told you is important. What I just said about the difference between Amazon Web Services and Google is important. When I say Ignition is, you can use Ignition from Inductive Automation, and you should be. When I'm saying you can use Factory Studio, like at the plant level, you could use frameworks from TatSoft as your platform at the plant level. And with Inductive Automation, Ignition could be full stack, edge all the way to cloud. I mean, it is preposterous that Inductive Automation is not only not on this list, that they are not number one in the way upper right-hand corner. It's preposterous. And let me say this, I am not an Inductive Automation fanboy. Okay, there are people at Inductive Automation who don't like me. There are people who think I'm a dick. There are people who don't like that I'm critical. When I was critical of their mobile module vocally, they did not like it. When I've been critical about their historian vocally, they don't like it. There are people at IA who do like me and respect me. I have friends there, and I have a good relationship with them. But I am no inductive automation fanboy.
I was blackballed from the conference a couple years.
But the truth is the truth. You know, when Henry Marini went off on inductive automation, it's like, why? They're the last company you should be blasting. Literally the last fucking company. And you want to know why they're not on this list? Because they didn't pay to be there. And how do I know that? Because leaders in that organization told me.
Siemens.
I asked. WinCCOA, by the way. If you want, I'm gonna.
What's wrong with Siemens in the IIoT space, though?
Okay, here's the problem with Siemens in the IoT space. It's three things. By the way, I'm a big fan of all the major players. Siemens is the one who's the furthest ahead.
OA is definitely a platform, but OA is not highly regarded within Siemens. It seems because
correct.
It was purchased.
So what you've got is this: you have You have in the industrial space, you have two groups in Siemens. You have the legacy group who relies on the German government for continued revenue, right? They
67.
Right. You have the legacy company. But what Siemens did that was brilliant with Mendix, with WinCCOA, there's like this separate group that's taking Siemens in their path to the future.
WinCC open architecture is OA.
Right. Yeah, OA is open architecture. WinCCOA is a platform. It is an IIoT platform.
I built an MES OE engine inside of WinCCOA.
It is
distributed open architecture.
Incredibly powerful.
It's incredibly cumbersome and a high learning curve.
Number two, to answer your question, what's the problem with them? Citizen developers are not going to work within WinCCOA. Okay? Siemens believes that only engineers should do this stuff. By the way, not Siemens.
Germans think that way.
Only engineers should be doing this stuff. They're wrong. They're just flat out wrong. They're opposed to low code, no code. Like the legacy German believes this is the role of the engineer.
That's why Siemens WinCCOA is so cumbersome, because they like take pride in it or something.
Correct. And number three, and one of the biggest, probably the biggest issue with Siemens is Siemens's bread and butter is the stuff that they get, the business they get through regulation, through partnerships with the government. That's their bread and butter. And that makes it much harder for them to be agile for other customers. Okay. But believe me, I'm not here to bash Siemens. They're not the problem. Siemens is not the problem. Okay.
Aviva Connect. Someone brought up Aviva Connect.
The last good thing Aviva built was built by Rick Bellotta. And Rick hasn't been at Aviva in 15 years.
That's nasty.
I mean, he wasn't even at Aviva. He was at Wonderware, right? Or didn't even make the acquisition by then. Version 10.
There was Invensys, and then there was Schneider Electric, and then there was Aviva.
10.1 was the last good thing. The issue with Aviva is time to value and licensing. It's not that is Aviva an IIoT platform. It is. I wouldn't call it a platform. I'd call it a suite. It's an IIoT suite. Okay. But in order to do that basic integration, I just told you the example of the Opto22, the Control Logics, SAP, ERP, MySQL, and Infor CMMS, you're not using one product at Aviva. You're using 4, and you're spending a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars in licensing to just do that, to just do that simple proof of concept. So why would you use it when you don't have to? When you don't have to spend that money.
All right, 140 people are watching live right now.
Let me go through the standards here real quick, and then I want to talk about. I'm gonna go through this list here, read off the names and stuff, but I want to go through the criteria that they used. So, the IoT platform monitors IoT endpoints and event streams, supports and/or translates a variety of manufacturer and industrial proprietary protocols, analyzes data in the platform, at the edge and in the cloud, integrates and engages IT and OT systems in data sharing and consumption, enables application development and deployment, and can enrich and supplement OT functions for improved asset management lifecycle strategies and processes. In some emerging use cases, the IoT platform may obviate some OT functions. They're missing a fundamental requirement of an IoT platform, and that is the single source of truth. So it is actually the home base for the structure and the events of a business. That is what an industrial Internet of Things platform does. Whether that platform is one piece of software or a stack you put together, one of the core functions is the single source of truth. Okay. The IoT platform, in concert with the IoT Edge and through enterprise IT/OT integration, prepares asset-intensive industries to become digital businesses by enhancing and connecting their core business with external business partners. There's another piece that they're missing. So that is true. That is, you're connecting data to internal and external, but there's no discussion here about the commoditization of the data, the conversion of the data into value for sale, which is, by the way, one of the reasons Snowflake is so valuable. The IoT platform may be consumed as software or cloud services, as a technology suite, or as an open and general purpose application platform, or in combination with analytics, application enablement, data management, device management, integration, and security functional capabilities. It is engineered to include the requirements of safety and mission criticality associated with industrial assets and their operating environments. Obviously, what they are missing about the IoT platform is that it collects, it stores, it analyzes, it visualizes, it finds patterns, it reports, and it solves, in addition to being edge-driven, report by exception, lightweight, and open architecture. And it'll allow you to create a single source of truth for all data and information so that you can plug in a digital supply chain and you can commoditize data. Why do manufacturers care about this? Okay, let me quickly go over why it is manufacturers care. Okay, what are manufacturers trying to achieve? What is industry trying to achieve? Okay, they are trying to create a fully integrated business made up of digital factories.
That's the holy grail.
It's the holy grail of manufacturing.
It's one of the very first videos we did was a short on what is the holy grail.
So what the IIoT platform must serve this end here. So number one, everything and everyone is plugged into a network. So an IoT platform must serve that. Okay, well, this is one of the beauties why Ignition's not on this list. Blows my mind, because Ignition has unlimited tags, unlimited windows, and vision clients, and you're not paying by client.
So everything and everyone can be plugged in.
Everything and everyone. Okay. Number two, all the layers of the business are integrated and operate based on data and information from all the other layers in real time. So that's PLC and HMI, supervisory control and data acquisition, MES, ERP, and cloud. Those are the layers. Okay. Stakeholders at every layer, no matter what domain of the business you're in, you know the state of the business in real time. An example of that would be, you should be able to use an IoT platform to notify of a supervisor the status of all of the equipment and people that they are supervising on a given shift. Plus, they should be able to monitor the current state and where they are relative to their business plan. That is an actual use case, not what Gartner wrote up above. Stakeholders, if they know current state, they can then know the future state of the business in real time. If I have current state, I can store it historically. I can then use algorithms to look for patterns in that data. And if I learn from the past and I monitor the present, I can predict the future based on what's happened in the past when we've seen what we're looking at right now. That's how stakeholders will know the future state. A good example, a use case here would be predicting failure. The future state of this asset is it will be down within the next 12 hours for one of these types of failures. Or it'll be something like, we're midway through the shift, and based on our current state and past performance, we are going to fall short of plan, this far ahead of plan. Same type of thing in logistics. You're using machine learning and artificial intelligence to collect and analyze data and information. You're using machine learning to predict future outcomes based on past patterns and current state. You're using AI to recommend the adjustments so that you can mitigate the bad outcomes. And then stakeholders, human beings, use that platform to decide whether or not to execute and recommend operational adjustments. That is literally what an IoT platform is doing in service of the Holy Grail. Okay. And then what's important to note is digital transformation is a strategy. It's not a project. It transforms the way manufacturers operate. Starts with admitting there's a problem. You start by inventorying the business, inventorying the intelligence, connecting the intelligence to the network, integrating into a single source of truth or unified namespace, collecting, connecting, store, analyze, and visualize, present the information, learn from the information, expand your single source of truth, and iterate. Your platform must give you the ability to do that thing. That's part of the process. This is why when I was talking about, can you use Ignition for 5 years as your platform? No, you're going to need additional tools. But for the first 2 years, inductive automation, Ignition, the reason it's so popular is because you can fucking land it into an enterprise at multiple layers, on the edge, in the area, at the site, in the cloud. You can connect them all together, and you can do what I just described over and over and over again. That is a platform. Okay? It is very, Gartner doesn't take any of that. What I just laid out here is what manufacturers actually do. It's what industry actually does.
You got to keep repeating the manufacturing holy grail, because I feel like, like how Dave Ramsey has like the baby steps.
Right.
It's like the manufacturing holy grail. Like, this is our North Star. And you, like I said, you've been saying for 5-6 years now, this is the holy grail. It hasn't changed. Right. And, some people say like, oh, unified namespace is the holy grail. Unified namespace isn't the holy grail.
No.
It helps you get to the holy grail. It's in service of. Same thing with the IIoT platform.
Exactly. And so let's go with what Gartner says the must-have capabilities are. Okay. The global IIoT platform must have the following capabilities. Number one, device management. Okay. So it's not data management, which is later. This is device management. So this function enables manual and automated tasks to create, provision, configure, troubleshoot, and securely manage fleets of IoT devices and gateways remotely, in bulk, or individually. Is that a function of an IIoT platform? No, it's not. That is what we refer to as device operations. Okay, device operations is something that must be done, but the platform doesn't need to do it. The IIoT platform must be able to consume from the result of device operations.
What about Dell and would you consider them a platform with their orchestrator and edge?
Dell Native Edge with orchestrator and the blueprint.
Is that device ops, or is
that's device, hardware, and software ops, which, by the way, is why it's such a game changer. We'll talk about Dell here later next week sometime. But yes, is Dell Native Edge an IIoT platform? No.
Got it.
Why? Because it doesn't connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize, find patterns, report, and solve. But what it can do is it can be part of a stack that does that.
Got it.
Now, why is it, Litmus is a partner with Dell on Dell Native Edge? Because if you bolt Litmus you combine Litmus with Dell Native Edge together, guess what? You're 90% of the way to a platform. Right?
Rockwell.
Can you create a platform out of Rockwell solutions? Sure, absolutely. Would you do that? The answer is, is there a scenario? Probably. But again, at the end of the day, you have to take into account time to value. I mean, one of the things I'm going to go over here is, let's say I wanted to use what Gartner calls an IoT platform for a simple use case, the first 12 weeks of a journey. How long would that, how much is it going to cost me, and how long will it take? Like what we're doing at Prove It. Most of what they've listed here, with the exception of Litmus, by the way, Litmus is the fastest performer here. You can do use cases like that use case I described to you, the Opto 22, the Rockwell, the MySQL database. You could do that in a couple of days, 2 days with Litmus. You could do that in a few hours with Ignition. The rest of these platforms, we're talking weeks. In some cases, 15 to 20 weeks to do that example, right? It's fucking crazy. All right, so the next one is integration. So the IoT platform must include tools and technologies such as communication protocols, APIs, application adapters, which address the data process, enterprise application, and IoT ecosystem integration requirements across cloud and on-prem. IoT platforms integrate into IoT devices, IoT gateways, historians, etc. That's the connect, collect. Okay. Data management. This function includes capabilities that support ingesting IoT endpoint and edge device data, storing data from multiple industrial data sources like historians, yada, yada. That's the store. Then you've got analytics. This function includes the processing of data streams such as device, enterprise, and contextual data to provide insights into asset states by monitoring use, etc. And then standard capabilities, I'm just going to list them off. Application enablement and management, security, edge to cloud architecture, plus a data acquisition layer. Okay. The only one that I disagree with, by the way, this is not how I would describe the requirements. Okay. Here is what we have in our Industry 4 data set. When we score manufacturers across the Industry 4 data set, so the 1,400 manufacturers we're doing digital maturity, we score them across 10 pillars. So we score them across on operations, IT, engineering, quality, leadership, infrastructure, platform, network, connectivity, and strategy. Those 10 pillars are how we judge the digital maturity of an organization. Each of those pillars has a scale of 1 to 5. So I'm going to just go through a couple of these things. So the operations pillar, an organization would get a 1 if operations doesn't operate with any real-time data at all, real-time digital data at all. They would get a 5 if they have a single pane of glass and they're using digital data-driven decision-making in real time. That's a 5 on operations.
And what would a 3 be?
IT would be like a 3 would be the mean is going to be something like I've got SCADA in place, digital SCADA system. I'm looking at some real-time data, primarily process, and I may have a partly digital manufacturing execution system. Like, for example, I might manually enter something into like an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, that would be the mean. Okay, each of those pillars has these standards. Here's the platform. So a 1 means that they have no IIoT platform at all. Okay, a 3 means I'm using a solution-centered platform. Okay, so a solution-centered platform is I have a series of modules I plug together in a common framework. So this is going to be something like Rockwell Automation, Amazon Web Services, although Amazon...
Odoo would potentially fall into that category.
Right. I would say Amazon Web Services is more getting closer and closer to true platform. Okay. But this is going to be something like I'm using Azure as my framework. Okay. That's the mean. Okay. I'm using Rockwell Automation. The challenge, the reason why that's a bad score for your platform is because of time to value. What you are constantly doing is skipping over opportunities because they'll cost too much. And the reason they cost too much is because it requires experts to build them. You don't leverage the fact that citizen developers can unlock potential in your data. Okay, that's one of the big differentiators. By the way, Gartner never took that into account. Citizen development. Okay, so what is the ideal platform? What is a 5 when we're looking at absolute maximum digital maturity?
Garrett, this is live.
So IIoT platform that is open, it's edge driven, it's report by exception, it's cross-platform, it's scalable, it works for both digital thread and technology-driven stacks in concurrence. It is not solution-centric. It connects, it collects, it stores, it analyzes, it visualizes, it finds patterns, it reports, it solves, and it supports the employee of the future. That is a 5. Okay. All right. Let's go back. Let's go ahead and take a look at. We'll quickly go over the quadrant again, and then I want to answer questions here. I'm gonna go over one piece at the bottom. So in the niche players. So if you read the report, you'll actually read the breakdown of these companies, like why they put them here. I'm going to read you a couple of them, all right? Couple of the arguments for why they're on this quadrant, which is preposterous. But let's look at our niche players, and there's a lot of them, okay? So you've got XCMG Hanyon, you've got Aviva, you've got Rockwell Automation, you've got Litmus, you've got Davra, you've got Cognite, you got Losant, you got Eurotech, you got Exasite, and you got Root Cloud. All right. Litmus absolutely belongs on the quadrant, but they are a leader. Number 2, Aviva belongs on the quadrant, but I don't put them as a niche player. Okay. I wouldn't call Aviva a niche player. I would call Aviva a legacy player. Okay. Rockwell, you could make the argument that you can build an IIoT platform using Rockwell solutions. So would I put them on the Magic Quadrant? No. Losant and Cognite both belong on there. Losant and Cognite. Everybody else drop them. Exosite doesn't belong there. Eurotech. I encourage you to look up Eurotech and then ask yourself, how the hell are they an IoT platform? Okay. Root Cloud doesn't belong there. XCMG, Hanyon doesn't belong there. Okay. Challengers. BrainCube is the only company that's in the challengers part. Now, I was only recently introduced to BrainCube. I think they're a French company. Are they an IoT platform? Yes. Are they an IoT platform I would use? No, way too expensive. Okay. Let's go to the visionaries, lower right-hand corner. You've got PTC, you got ABB, you got Siemens, and you got Universe. Okay. ABB and Siemens belong there. Okay. ABB is actually doing a lot of really cool shit. Okay. ABB and Siemens absolutely belong there, but Siemens belongs as a leader. WinCCOA is a leader as an IoT platform. Okay, there are 3 platforms that we always use all the fucking time, over and over and over again.
Frameworks.
Ignition, Frameworks, and WinCCOA. They are a leader. Okay, PTC does not belong there. Okay. Exactly, Rick. The issue with Twin Thread is the name. Everybody, you hear Twin Thread and you think immediately
Digital thread.
And while they use that language, Twin Thread is literally the first platform to come out where when they describe digital twin, they mean a literal twin. That is a twin that I can do simulations on, but I am married to real-time data. Twin Thread's the first one to do it. Okay, everybody else who was saying digital twin wasn't using real-time data. They were using a snapshot. Okay, Twin Thread is the first company to get it right. And you're right, they do belong here. I would put them as visionary. All right, the leaders, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Software AG. Microsoft doesn't belong in this in any way, shape, or form. I hate to break the news to you. They don't belong here. They don't belong here. It is preposterous. They threw their IoT platform away. And in their own words, because no one bought it. The reason it was thrown away, the reason no one bought it was because it was garbage. It was garbage. AWS belongs here. I'd put them like right in the middle of the leaders. But there are some glaring misses here. And not the least, and I want to make this about inductive automation. How can anyone take this seriously if Ignition is not in the upper right-hand corner? You tell me. How anyone could take this seriously? I want to do something real quick. Let's read. I want to give you an example of how they do this analysis, okay? So I'm going to do ABB, I'm going to use Eurotech, and then I'm going to read inductive automations, okay? So they wrote ABB is a visionary in the Magic Quadrant. The ABB Ability Genix IIoT offering has a broad product portfolio that connects to industrial control systems, SCADA, PLCs, historians, ERP, and other real-time data sources to monitor and analyze assets. ABB's headquartered in Switzerland, has a strong global presence with customers in 129 countries. Their business model mainly relies on its customer base of more than 25,000 for other products and partnerships, as well as a need for digital transformation. Genix includes the range of capabilities expected in a platform, and it has customers across most sectors and subsectors, except for air transport, freight, and courier. Where I believe that this is an appropriate platform is in the places where I'm doing distributed control. I'm laying ABB, I'm laying Genix on top of, say, a rolling mill environment, a steel manufacturing, right? The kind of place where I'd put Delta V, except I'm using ABB. Genix is a perfect tool for the distributed DCS control type of environment. It's very expensive, and it takes a very long time to integrate. But guess what? In those types of processes, everything's expensive, and everything takes forever to integrate. Okay? Then they just added in Gen AI capability, and then they go through the strengths and weaknesses. They don't even call them weaknesses. They call them cautions. Okay. So the strengths, ABB's got a global presence that was initiated from its widely deployed hardware, but it's been extended to be hardware agnostic. That's not entirely true. It's really hard it's much harder to integrate non-ABB hardware with ABB software solutions. A really good example would be like, go ahead and look at the difference between integrating a PowerFlex drive and an ABB drive with the ABB software solutions. There's a big fucking difference. Okay. ABB Genix has broad visibility within its base, and it can readily offer customer examples in all global regions. ABB has strong technology partnerships, such as its recently renewed Microsoft partnership that includes deeper integration of ABB Genix into Azure infrastructure and application services. ABB has broad and deep experience with industrial assets. Cautions. Although ABB Ability Genix has significant deployments natively supporting device management and digital twins for both ABB and non-ABB hardware, Gartner client inquiries indicate that most equipment they manage with ABB solutions are non-ABB devices, suggesting limited recognition outside of ABB's own hardware customers. Although ABB has progressed considerably on the implementation partner ecosystem and developer programs, ABB primarily delivers digital services around its solution directly using its in-house experts globally. Basically, they're vertically integrated in their go-to-market strategy. This will limit implementation choices for some customers in some regions. What it means is you're either going to be all ABB or no ABB using Genix. ABB has a global presence. All right, let's go down to Eurotech real quick to show you just how much of a joke this is. Eurotech is a niche player in the Magic Quadrant. Its global IIoT offering is intended to simplify edge complexity through both modular hardware and open source-based software solutions. Eurotech is headquartered in Italy and has a global presence with more than 100 customers. The offering is marketed and sold directly in the United States, Europe, and Asia Pacific. The offering is designed to be used in a variety of industries, with the largest customer segment being other at 40%, meaning industries leveraging the scope of this Magic Quadrant, followed by utilities at 16%. The offering is based on a number of open source technologies, including Eclipse Cura and CapUA for data and device management, Red Hat, JBoss AMQ, JBoss Fuse, Elasticsearch, and Cassandra. The pricing for the offering is based on the customer's needs and the size of the deployment. The IoT Device Gateway Middleware, Everywhere Software Framework, is offered as a perpetual license or subscription on Eurotech hardware, a subscription on third-party hardware, or as a subscription on the data and device management platform, which is Everywhere Cloud. Strengths. Eurotech has a long history of developing and deploying IoT hardware, software, and solutions, which gives it a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities in this space. Eurotech's contribution, support of, and use of open source, particularly through the Eclipse Foundation, makes its platform flexible and adaptable. Eurotech maintains strong partnerships across all major cloud providers and works to remain partner agnostic, which can protect customers from vendor lock-in. Cautions. Eurotech's limited presence outside of Europe and the US will make it less appealing. Enterprises that require advanced analytics capabilities will require partners, third-party software, or additional developers. And Eurotech's IoT platform has limited edge AI support, which will require additional third-party solutions and investments outside of the Eurotech platform. What I want you to do is I want you to try and tell me how the fuck you would use Eurotech as your IIoT platform for digital transformation in service of achieving the manufacturing holy grail.
Walker, I was just about to tell Eurotech they could Venmo us our sponsorship fee for that shout out.
And tell me how Eurotech ended up on this Magic Quadrant.
They should come to Prove It Europe
if they didn't pay for it. I mean, what we could do is here's what we could do.
Watch their sales just spike.
Well, I mean, go take a look at them. I'm not telling you not to use them.
You're saying their value proposition isn't very clear.
What I'm telling you is how the fuck is Eurotech on this list and Inductive Automation is not?
When they're nobody. Yeah.
How? They're literally no one. Moreover, they can't do connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize, find patterns, report, and solve.
Oh, they actually have ignition-ready hardware.
Here's my question. How is Eurotech a platform? How is Eurotech not hardware that you sell with a platform? That's my point. All right.
Everybody wants a platform. Everybody's bringing a platform, you know?
One last thing. I want to go over one last thing in the report, okay? And then I want to encourage you to go ahead and Josh is going to put a link.
And we got to do announcements at the end.
Yes. All right, here we go. So I want to do honorable mentions real quick. So they added Aviva, Cognite, and Losant, and they dropped Hitachi. So Hitachi shifted its business strategy to service and solution-based offerings, and the IoT platform is no longer the focus of innovation. Do you want to know why? Because no one bought it. So how the fuck did they end up on the quadrant? Okay. It does not meet inclusion because it does not offer a complete bundled solution of all capabilities. Last year it did. And they threw away capabilities? No. What it means is because they shifted their business focus, they didn't give us our money. Therefore, we didn't put them on the quadrant. Okay. Inclusion and exclusion criteria, just so everybody knows. So to qualify for inclusion in this Magic Quadrant, each vendor had to meet the following criteria. The vendor must be an IoT platform supplier to asset-intensive industries. Again, how does Eurotech qualify? The IoT software platform tendered for consideration must be generally available and in production deployments in at least 3 defined industrial sectors. For this evaluation, Gartner has identified the following sectors and allowed subsectors as representing asset-intensive industries. So manufacturing and natural resources, transportation, and utilities. The IoT platform must be able to deliver and support the following capabilities in a single bundled offering across a distributed architecture: analytics, device management, integration, data management, application enablement and management, and security. Okay. The provider may include, via a formal ongoing partnership or partnerships with other software vendors, portions of the IoT platform capabilities. The vendor must demonstrate purpose-built integration and support for scalability and interoperability relating to partnered IoT platforms. The general availability date for the platform must be April 24th, 2023 or earlier. For enhanced guidance relating to product releases, product release must be general GA by April 24th, 2023. It must be saleable as an independent purchase without requirements for companion hardware or software purchases. Similarly, purchase of the IoT platform should not be contingent on an existing asset base of vertical applications. The vendor must have 100 customers, and the vendor must have a minimum of 12 unique customers operating the platform in each of these major categories: North America, South America, Europe, Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa. And they must have at least 36 unique customers. And they must have, at a minimum, 400,000 industrial IoT endpoints, which can span industrial IoT endpoints connected across installed base of customers. At least 20,000 of these must be industrial gateways. I have ignition implementations that have 400,000 endpoints in one location. Okay. Honorable mention. Covasys, Inductive Automation. Let's see what they said about IA here. Inductive Automation's IoT offering spans a range of required IoT platform components for industrial enterprises with a strong North America presence, plus partners for the rest of the world. It works with customers in manufacturing, both process and discrete, as well as water and power utilities. Typical projects involve integrating plant data to drive cost optimization or automation efforts. The company did not meet the Magic Quadrant criteria for offering the platform as a standalone solution without the need for acquiring third-party software sold under separate contract. Let me say that again. The reason they didn't meet the requirement, I want someone to tell me that this is true, that Inductive Automation doesn't sell their IIoT platform as a standalone solution without the need for acquiring third-party software sold under separate contract. Is that true? Can I spend $14,999 or whatever it is? Can I spend $20,000 on the Ignition platform, not buy any additional modules, and it's an IIoT platform?
Yeah.
Yes. That's how stupid these guys are.
You used to be able to get the platform itself for free.
Think about how stupid. That's how stupid they are. All right. That's how.
Oh, someone said this live stream's not complete until you call any CSO, Chief Security or Information Officer, CIO, who uses Gartner a fucking idiot.
I'm on my way there. So we're going to take it home here. So number one, I want to answer any questions. So hopefully Josh has looked. If there's any comment that I need to reply, I don't see the comments when I'm doing it. Ask yourself this, okay? Who uses this to make decisions? Like, honestly, who uses this? Here's a challenge. If anyone from Gartner, like if any of the authors, by the way, they'll never do this because I would eviscerate them, but I would eviscerate them. I mean, I would do it Socratically. I wouldn't be a jerk. So if Scott Kim or Emil Berthelsen or any of these 6 other authors want to come on here and prove me wrong or defend the report, the invitation's open. Just reach out. You can go to contact at, is it 40solutions.com or contact at Intellic. Reach out to Zach, Josh. They'll set up a podcast. If you want to come on and defend it, I'm all for it. I would love to do it. I'd love to understand like where the separation is here. Okay. Number 2, if you are an executive who makes your decision based on this report, I want to ask you 2 questions. Okay. Number 1, how does it make you feel to know that Gartner reaches out to me to get me to pay them to recommend me to you? How does that make you feel? Because that's what they were doing. And if someone from Gartner wants to come on here and be like, hey, Walker, that's not what we meant. Go ahead. I mean, I read your emails. I read your email words for word, so I didn't misrepresent them. And the way I took it was, you want me to pay you. I'm going to become a client of yours. So I'll have access to your analysts. So your analysts will recommend me to your customers. And you were holding up your customers as the reason why I should give you money. Well, here's the problem. I don't need Gartner to recommend me because I have a long history of success in my career. I have the awards to prove it. I don't need a company like Gartner to trick people into working with me. Like, by the way, we have a customer right now. Let me give you this example. I was having a meeting with, I've told you guys this story. You guys will be interested in this. We've been working with a large multinational for years, 6 years. This is a global company. They're one of the largest companies in the world. Actually, one of the 10 largest industrial companies in the world. Okay. We have done a full digital transformation in one sector of in one area of one of their facilities. Okay. It's a facility where they had a lot of troubles with traceability. So we do a full digital transformation based on Ignition, by the way. And a few years ago, I told you this story. They hired us to, there was a global initiative that came from their corporate IT to use Accenture to do Azure Digital Twin. I've told this story. And they said, and our customer at the plant said, hey, we'd like to hire you, Walker, and your team to come in and just sit in on the Accenture meetings. Just sit in and speak on our behalf because we don't speak the language. And I said, sure, let's do that. So I go there. I drive to the location. It's a few hours away. And they bring me in, and they've got all these people from all over the world there. They got, I don't know, probably 8 Accenture and consultants all sitting at the fucking table together. And, I come in my hoodie, and, I think I was wearing my hoodie, my Savage hoodie. It literally said Savage on it. And our customer's in there and his whole team and the operations manager and the whole deal. And the corporate IT director for the company is there. He's from Europe, and he flew over and Accenture has got their reference architecture up on the screen. They're talking about all they're going to do at this plant. This is 2 years ago, year and a half. And I never even sat down. I literally walked up. There was a whiteboard right next to their overhead, the screen. And I said, I have a question. I actually have a few questions. But number one, I drew a circle in the middle of their screen. And I'm like, how are you going to reconcile the data and information models on this side, the namespaces on this side, with the namespace that's in being your ingress into digital twin? And then also, how will you reconcile that going back? Because the data and information models on this side and the domain that owns those data and information models are different than ones over here. And the Accenture guy was like, oh, we're going to have that meeting tomorrow morning. I'm like, yeah, sure you are. I said, it's question number 2. I know this doesn't work, right? My client doesn't know. This is classic digital thread, okay? I know this doesn't work. The client doesn't know yet, right? Can you give me an example, just one example of a customer who has this as the foundation of their digital infrastructure and that they have achieved what they describe as digital transformation? Just one. I only need one example. And they were fucking livid. I've told this story. Their faces were beet red because they couldn't recommend one customer. And I said to the client, I said, listen, these guys deserve to have an opportunity to try what they want to try. But I'm here to tell you this. Here's what's going to happen. And I wrote on the whiteboard, this is what you're going to see at the 6-month mark. This is what you're going to see at 12 months. This is what you're going to see at 18 months. And this is when you'll hit critical mass. I just had a, and I'm not picking on Accenture here. There's a lot of brilliant people at Accenture, but it is what it is. In this case, maybe those 6 people were the wrong people. Okay. The issue I have with Accenture is their tight coupling with Microsoft. Accenture is not impartial. They toe the Microsoft line, and it's like what we're seeing. It's like you have to tell the truth as an expert. As a domain expert, you have to give the truth. You have to give your honest opinion. You can't go, oh man, they're my partner. I really can't. I mean, I'll tell you right now, when I'm working with an Ignition and somebody says, why can't I use Ignition's drivers to connect to my devices? Well, you can, but are you going to do that at scale? Are you going to use Ignition gateways to talk to 1,000 PLCs? No. Inductive Automation is not an expert in device connectivity. They have device connectivity, but they're not experts like Kepware is or Matricon. They're not experts. So why aren't you going to use the best-in-class solution as you start to scale? Or why can't I use Ignition's historian? Well, I mean, it doesn't really give you raw data, and the algorithm they use doesn't actually store the raw event, and you need to look at the way that they do it. If you want to look at the actual raw events, you got to use something that'll store the raw event. But Ignition's historian is a stopgap. It's something you'd use in the short term. That's me being an Ignition partner, but telling them the truth. Accenture was telling this customer that Microsoft Azure IoT and Digital Twin was their savior. Guess what the customer believes now? Literally verbatim what they said in their most recent update meeting. And in fact, our customer's been saying it for a year.
Walker was right.
Walker was right. Not, hey, Intellic was right. Walker was right.
Put up Boosted's comment. It's taken 3 years to defeat the IT and Gartner propaganda, but he finally just completed a UNS pilot with Ignition, and we're getting ready to scale now. We're getting a lot of comments from the community that they're like now just getting to where, right? Maybe what we were talking about 3 or 4 years ago. Let me any questions I need to answer here, and is there anything
Oh wow.
Someone was asking about Tulip. I know we talked about it earlier, but
yeah. What does Tulip belong on the Magic Quadrant? The answer is I would put Tulip on the Magic Quadrant with a caveat. That is Tulip as part of a larger package. So one of the things that we did was Tulip, both Tulip and Highbite are in the northeastern United States. And one of the first things I did when I went out to Tulip, I was like, you guys really should partner with Highbite because you're going to get the data ops capability that you don't have. Like, you don't do data ops in Tulip. Tulip is an operations platform. But what is happening is Tulip, it's not an IoT platform, it's an operations platform. But what Tulip is doing all of the partnerships that will make them part of a stack that is an IoT platform. So I would definitely put Tulip on the quadrant as an emerging, like, one to watch, right? I mean, should you be using Tulip? Absolutely. Absolutely. You should be using Tulip as out on the edge. I mean, Tulip's major game changer is they are so far ahead of everyone on generative AI. You need to watch the video that we just did on Tulip when we were at Hannover Messe. They are so far ahead. So far ahead. What you guys don't see in that video is a whole demo that I did before we started filming. And I went out of my way to try to trip them up when they were using the chatbot to analyze data. And I couldn't. Like, when I told them to give me the schedule pivoted this way and, only you eliminate these assets, only use this product code, like, it got it right.
That's awesome.
So to answer your question, is Tulip an IoT platform? It's emerging. If you couple it with some other things, then yes. Like, for example, take Tulip, take HiveMQ or EMQX, take Highbite, and take the Unified Analytics Framework from Flow Software, and you put all those together, and now you have an IoT platform.
Speaking of IoT platforms, once we announce the sponsors for Prove It, there's going to be a huge surge of ticket sales.
Yeah, what we're trying to do here is,
it's going to be insane because the community has been telling the vendors, end users have been telling the software vendors, hey, you've got to be at Prove It.
Here's a clip. Josh, you'll clip this one. This will be a short. Mark my words. Prove It is going to change the game when it comes to conferences for industrial automation and digital transformation. And we are going to see a shitload of conferences that are going to follow the Prove It model, where no longer are the vendors going to go and set up a booth and market. They're going to have to build a solution based on the organizers of the conference. Because imagine you are an end user and you go to Prove It and you see digital transformation over the course of 3 days and 35 different vendors, and all of them have to prove it. One digital infrastructure, and they're building a solution that they've been working on for 16 weeks. And then you go to Rockwell's Automation Fair, or you go to PTC's, whatever they call it, right? Which, by the way, I liked. But you go to those shows and you're going to go
to trick executives.
Where's the bread and butter? Where's the result? Imagine that. LiveWorks. Thank you, Josh. More information on Prove It Europe. We had the steering committee meeting yesterday. We looked at the floor layout. So I was in that meeting for the first 30 minutes. We got a chance to see the floor layout, like where the vendors are going to go. The location is in Southwest Europe. It's in Kerry, right? It's in Kerry Island. It's at the IMR Labs. It's the Irish manufacturing. Josh,
Ireland proper or Northern Ireland?
It's called IMR, and it's called IMR,
Irish Manufacturing Research Institute.
Yeah, it's the Irish Manufacturing Research Institute. We're going to have somewhere between, let's say, 10 and 20 vendors. On the high end,
probably less. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a very niche conference. It's
yeah,
going to
it's
be
a
a very
smaller conference.
intimate.
It's Prove It, but it's going to be 100 to 110 people, mostly end users.
There's going to be incredible networking opportunities because you're basically going to be able to meet everyone there.
And then here's the other advantage. If you go to Europe, you are going to get access to, whether you go to Prove It in the States, whether you go to Prove It in Europe,
Day 3 mastermind.
You're going to get access to the mastermind session that we do on day 3. You're also going to have access to all the media. So you'll be.
Are you going to teach from the architecture, like the Prove It infrastructure?
Yep.
That's going to be incredible.
The mastermind session we do on Friday is going to put a bow on everything.
Thursday, right?
Thursday, the last day. I mean,
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions about right there? What's your take on UMH? Would you include them in a quadrant, or instead the technologies Hive, Node-RED, their solution is based on? Okay. I'm a big fan of UMH. I am. I am still using it as I am still it. All right.
They're very technically savvy.
Yeah, like they are relying on the end users to guide them on their feature development, which is the right thing to do where they are right now. Right now, it is still a little. You still have to have a relatively high level of technical fluency to use UMH right now, but it's really powerful.
I think they're also focusing on the European market.
And what I really like about UMH is the same thing I like about, there's a tool called Sandbox. Tomasz Vidonia and Yuri Lund, who are probably on here. There's this tool called Sandbox that came out of Slovenia. And UMH, the United Manufacturing Hub, and Sandbox are really similar. You really need to think of them as like operating systems. And, operating systems you deploy in a device, and it has a whole suite of, you don't think of it as software. You think of it more as a OS. And Sandbox, like what Yuri's is coming out of like education, like students, and they have industrial customers, but the Sandbox is coming out of like academia, and UMH is coming out of the commercial demand. And I love them both. But would I call them an IoT platform? And the answer is, I guess technically yes, but would I call them an enterprise IoT platform? No. And right now, what we were talking about here is global IoT platforms, which means that they would support enterprise. Like, for example, UMH doesn't have any mechanisms for like distributed environments yet. Like they're working on like a completely distributed architecture that doesn't exist yet. You can manage many instances of UMH, but those instances don't interoperate. You have to manually connect them together, similar to like the way AWS does. Sandbox is wholly standalone. But if you're talking UMH, you should also look at Sandbox. You want to reach out to Yuri. It's shit. I'll do it in my post with our quadrant. But I'm a huge fan of UMH.
So there's two things that we're working on right now.
Hold on real quick. Where does the analytics functionality reside in the Ming stack? It depends on what type of analytics you're doing. But in the Node-RED Grafana layer, certainly you're doing a shit ton of analytics. In the Influx layer, you can do onboard analytics with InfluxDB. But what you're really bolting on is Python with the Ming stack. So you've got stack, and then you've got Python and then you're bringing in all of your analytics tools. And then what you're doing is you're publishing the results of the analytics back into the Mosquito broker to be consumed and visualized in Grafana. Ming is by far the most. For example, what can an IoT software, what can and can it not do? I would argue this. Okay, this is a good standard. There's nothing IoT software can't do with enough work. I've said this about Ignition forever.
Platform for solving problems.
Yeah, I've said that when people ask me, Walker, why are you so big on Ignition? By the way, Ignition doesn't pay me anything. The last time I talked to my sales rep, And inductive automation was like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Like, I don't, even I think I can, inductive automation reached out about Prove It and stuff, right? And I didn't talk to any of them. I haven't had a conversation with them. So when everyone says, hey, why do you talk shit? Why do you gas up inductive automation? Well, because they are the best fucking platform on the planet. And if you look at their pillars for where they grew out of, why does ignition exist? Well, because Steve Heckman said, fuck all you big guys. Fuck you guys. He had an integrator and he's like, you're screwing me and my customers. We're going to build our own platform. And he hired a couple of guys straight out of UC Davis, one of them who's running the company today. Colby Clegg, he's only ever worked at inductive automation. He literally came out of college and he built the platform with Carl Gold. Travis Cox, all these people, they've been there since day one.
Vanessa
Garcia, they've been there from the beginning. Bobby, all those guys. Like, show me that somewhere else. Every year, inductive automation has preached the same thing, that we're a company built on values. Do I agree with every decision they make? Of course not. I don't like that report that comes out with celebrating the top salespeople. Hey, this integrator sold the most licenses. I think it's stupid. It creates the wrong incentive. Do I like the Premier Integrator program and No, I don't like those things. I think they create the wrong incentives. But does that mean that Ignition is not literally the best platform on the fucking planet? Do they need to do some work? Yes, they need to update Jython. They're coming out with a historian, long overdue. Okay. Do I think inductive automation needs to be more publicly honest about the limitations? Like, here are the things you shouldn't do. At scale, you don't want to use our historian. At scale, you don't want to use our drivers. There's a point in your journey where you're going to want to offload that.
Do you think they could open source the platform?
Look at what they did with what's the version?
Maker.
Yeah, Maker.
Literally, do you think they could open source Ignition?
Or at least the old part? There's a lot of value in there, dude. But here's what an IoT platform is, gang. An IoT platform, whether it's a piece of software or whether it's a stack of software and hardware, it is a platform for solving problems. Okay, in the context of digital transformation, it's connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize, find patterns, report, solve, single source of truth, plug into a digital supply chain, commoditize data. Okay, that's what it is. Supports citizen developers. At its base level, Ignition is as easy as it absolutely gets. You cannot find a piece of software that is easier to use. It is harder to open an Excel spreadsheet and build an Excel spreadsheet than it is to download, install, and start your first project in Ignition. A monkey could do it. A monkey could literally drag a tag onto a window. But at the high end, there is nothing you cannot build in Ignition. There is nothing you can't build in an IIoT platform. Nothing. Let me put it in perspective for you, gang. 10 years ago, when Intellic started, I built our time management system, our ERP system in Ignition. I took 8 weeks in my home office, in my garage, and I built the time management system in 8 weeks in Ignition. We are still using that same system today. Today, 10 years later, we do AR and AP. We track everything. We track internal projects, velocity. We are connected to our payment management systems. Everything is integrated into a unified namespace. And a couple months ago, when I decided to sell the company, I had to show the health of the company to the team over 10 years. And I integrated that infrastructure using Ignition to Google through Google Object Storage, BigQuery, and Looker Studio. And I built 8 dashboards from the Ignition TMS, just bolting Google on top of the existing infrastructure in 90 minutes.
That was your Prove It session.
That was my Prove It session. 90 fucking minutes. And I was literally able to show, here are clients over time. Here are billable engineers overtime. Here's ARAP overtime, literally over 10 years.
That's why you said it costs about $2,000 to do.
Correct.
Is you're about $1,200 an hour.
An IIoT platform is a platform for solving problems. It's a platform for solving problems. I did not know I was going to need to build that one day. Yet we just did this other thing. We have a junior, my son, Jared, is a junior engineer. Today, what he's been doing over the last week is he's been converting our Ignition TMS, which is built in Ignition 7.8, 7.8, 7.9. I built it after 7.7 came out, but we never converted it to Ignition 8 because the tags change. When you go from 7 to 8, it goes from SQL-based tags to JSONs. He literally converted the whole TMS system in less than 7 days. A 10-year-old system refactored in 7 days. Start to finish. Okay, I mean, that's a platform. HiByte. HiByte is a data ops platform. It is not an IIoT platform. It is what I would say is HiByte is a subset of an IIoT platform. HiByte does the connect, collect, store, and it can retrieve analysis for visualization in some other.
Their new historian, is that InfluxDB or what is their?
I can't remember what it's not Influx. It's I didn't watch the full video yet. They did a thing with us 2 weeks ago. All right. Any other? What EcoStruxure? What's your opinion about EcoStruxure, and do you consider it as IoT? The answer is, I consider it a solution-centered IIoT platform. I would argue that Schneider EcoStruxure is more on par with Rockwell Factory Talk than anything else. But let me say this about Schneider. You will not hear me recommending Schneider products until Schneider publicly apologizes for trying to patent SparkPlug-B for updating PLC programs. And you can, if you want to know my objection, you can read the LinkedIn post on it. I think it was fucking appalling. I think it's appalling. So you're not going to hear me recommending Schneider products, because when an organization shows you who they are, you should believe them. And if Schneider wants to defend and say, hey, listen, here's what the thinking was by trying to patent, file that patent, I'm all ears. It's not, but
they can't explain it though.
Yeah, there's no way to explain it. I mean, I read the patent. I posted about it on LinkedIn. That patent, they tried to sneak it in, and it's similar to shit that they did decades ago. So I can't recommend it. You know what I mean? But I'm also not saying don't use it. I'm just saying I can't recommend it. But they're more on par with Rockwell. What's a good ITOT tech software stack for a small business manufacturer? Great question. It's going to be a parallel stack. Okay. Number one, you're going to want to have, so I'm going to give you all the open source stuff. Okay. So you're not going to want to use Ming. You're going to want to use Ing. Okay. So
EMQX.
EMQX. So you're going to, and we're going to call it Ping. So it's going to be Portainer on the top, EMQX, InfluxDB, Node-RED, and Grafana. Portainer is going to be your container management solution. You're going to build a stack that is EMQX, InfluxDB, Node-RED, and Grafana inside of Portainer. Portainer is a container management solution. You can use the community edition to get started. Everything I just laid out there is free. So you could go buy Dell Optiplexes literally for $110 as your edge devices, refresh Dell Optiplexes, drop it out, and then deploy Ping. Okay. In parallel to that, your commercial solution, you're going to want Kepware on the edge. You're going to want Ignition, and you're going to want HiByte. And if you want to go to like a really powerful distributed MQTT broker, then you're going to want HiveMQ. Okay. I have objections to HiveMQ, gang. Don't get me wrong, but it's good. And then the cloud, I'm going to recommend AWS or Google. I've been using Google more and more because I can basically, for every project I have on site. So in L4, L3, L2, and L1 for every project I have there, I can create a project in Google Cloud Services. And then once I get the data ingressed into Google Cloud, primarily doing that like through Litmus, then all of the services in Google Cloud have access to what I landed. So I can do that with AWS, but it's more work. I have to do integrations at each step. So for every service that I want to use, whereas Google Cloud is just native. I strongly encourage you. We're doing I'll do a couple of things. So later we're going to do 2 workshops later this year.
You just told my thunder. I was going to ask you.
Oh, sorry, man. So, but
Are we wrapping it up here? We're
coming
up on 2 hours.
I'll just say this. Yeah, I didn't think we'd go 2 hours, but
we still have 80 people in. So
yeah. So number one, we're going to be doing a workshop for end users. So for manufacturers and members of industry who they want to learn how to reorg their business. Like, how do I build a digital transformation team? What type of people do I have to hire? How do I recruit and retain them? The employee of the future. We're going to be doing a workshop. I think it's 3 sessions is what we planned, but it's going to be 3 sessions for 1 workshop for end users. And we're going to be teaching them how to build their team, their digital transformation team, how to recruit and retain that team. Okay. The second workshop we're going to do is for everybody, end users, systems integrators, OEMs, and it's going to be on unified namespace. And so it's going to teach unified namespace. It's going to teach how to build unified namespace, but we're also going to be doing that through a stack. So I'm going to, and that's going to happen at the end of the year while the vendors are all taking their functional specs and building their solutions for Prove It. We're going to do the UNS workshop, and that's going to run kind of in parallel to what they're doing. So then anybody who goes to Prove It, who was part of that workshop, should be very fluent in what's happening.
That's fucking brilliant.
You know what I mean?
So pull me up. So we're also working on a few other things.
Yep.
Right now we're going through the Mastermind Accelerator program, 193 students, and we're on week 6. That's a 16-week program that is the core of our training. A lot of great feedback and interaction in that group right now. A lot of the students are on the call, so hello everybody. But we're talking about extending that course into diving into like a part 2 for an MES bootcamp accelerator. A lot of people, they've built the UNS, they've built the architecture, they understand the digital transformation and how to, develop a proof of concept. But they're like, well, if we're going to use MES as the proof of concept, how do I build that? And that's what the MES bootcamp, that's what I'm working on right now. So we're going to do another Mastermind Accelerator program, but that's not going to come until next year after the conference. So after the end of this accelerator, we're going to be doing an MES bootcamp, an 8-week MES bootcamp accelerator.
Let me answer Sean Arney's question: why EMQX over Mosquito? Two things. So Sadalo is a company. So Sadalo is to Mosquito what EMQX Pro or whatever is to EMQX. There is a pro edition of Mosquito that nobody knows about, and there's a company called Sadalo that owns it. Okay, so is it Phil? Is the original developer of Mosquito? He's the CEO of the company. The reason I pick EMQX is because there's like a barrier to getting the pro edition of Mosquito. And that is you have to contact the company. Like, I can't go and just download Mosquito Pro and deploy it. And because I'm deploying so many instances in that stack, Sean, I can use the same Docker Compose statement and that pulls down Community Edition from EMQX. And it's all just, it's me typing 1 line of code. There's the barrier to getting to the Mosquito Pro is higher. In terms of throughput, I'm actually doing some benchmarking. Mosquito Pro is really close to EMQX. Really is. So, I mean, in terms of performance, you're going to be good. But am I going to use open source Mosquito in my stack? Not when I have EMQX available. Because, I mean, if you look, EMQX is more performant. the EMQX Community Edition is more performant than your open source Mosquito. And the reason why, you can run Mosquito like on a Raspberry Pi or something, and it's going to run great. I wouldn't recommend running EMQX on a Raspberry Pi. So that's to answer your question. If you want to go straight Ming, you can. I just choose to do EMQX. I love the EMQX broker. I wish, the biggest problem with EMQX is they're a Chinese owned company.
I do think they're a bit of a platform too with their Neuron EX.
Yeah,
their edge platform can write to edge devices.
And by the way, even EMQ, even HiveMQ is going in that direction. So I mean, HiveMQ with their new module feature is fucking just sick as hell.
All right, Litmus UNS or HiveMQ?
To start, Litmus UNS. Litmus UNS. And the reason why is, again, the barrier to entry is going to be lower.
The broker is, but the UNS is a component on top of their Litmus broker.
Correct. Well, think of it in terms of asset management, asset model management.
When you said what I really built was a oil and gas tag management utility, I really built a UNS management utility.
Yeah.
The light bulb just kind of went on.
Yeah. EMQX is sick. I mean, HiveMQ is great. Here, the issue with HiveMQ is pricing. They have to figure out their pricing issues. There's no way to get a straight answer on pricing. And I love HiveMQ. I love Dominic. I love those guys. HiveMQ is going to be the foundation of they're going to be the MQTT broker at Prove It. And but I mean, listen, they got to fit. The pricing is not transparent.
Prove It America. Prove It Europe is still.
Yeah, Prove It Europe. I think they might end up using EMQX, by the way.
There's still sponsorship slots available for Prove It Europe.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Josh, was there anything else that came up in here? I mean, we went a long ass time.
That's fucking 2.5 hours. I got to get to Vegas. I'm going to WealthCon today. If anyone's going to be in Vegas, got to hit me up on Discord.
Non-Emerson question. I know a person working in a small company and looking to add sensors to their field devices and then make on-site apps and cloud apps. Would you all be able to interface to guide? Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of people that would be. Absolutely. And one of the first things they want to do is make sure they're looking at, hold on. I got to answer the FlowFuse question. Is to look at the Shark. Yeah, EMQX is definitely the best in Docker. It's so robust in a container. Like even Ignition runs a little weird in containers sometimes. Certain functions you might see weird behavior. You don't see nothing. EMQX is set it and forget it. Just runs forever. It's fucking crazy. My opinion on FlowFuse. Oh, if you're for that sensor application, instead of adding sensors, make sure you're looking at the Shark device by Mr. IIoT. That has a M2 connector that'll turn existing sensors you might have out there into smart sensors over MQTT. And it's big bang for your buck. But yes, my recommendation would be to go to the Discord server, iiot.university/Discord, and just go into Edge. What's your opinion on FlowFuse and Node-RED? Do we see them on Prove It? What is FlowFuse is on the list, right?
We can't make any announcements.
Sorry. The way it goes is
how to register for Prove It or how to register for one of the workshops. Right now, all the workshops that are upcoming, we do not have registration open yet. So
correct. We'll be announcing them in the next month, I think.
Go to IIoT University and sign up for our newsletter to get email updates.
My answer, Mohammed, was Cognite has issues with time to value and with some integrations, but they are one of the IoT platforms that belongs on the quadrant. So I specifically called out Cognite and Losan as belonging there. They do belong there. But more than half of what's on that list doesn't belong there. From cloud data ops perspective, where do you see Cognite and Sight Machine going? Let me reserve this, Trilock, for they're going in the right direction. I struggle to understand where I would choose to use Cognite. when I've already got a stack that works and is robust and works in every, we've already measured the time to value and we already know exactly what total cost of ownership is. And I struggle to go, oh, here's why. Like when Tatsoft, when we looked at Tatsoft's frameworks, you have Ignition, and then we look at Tatsoft's frameworks. And over the last few years, we've been working with them to help develop, expand the platform to add features. People were like, well, why are you looking at frameworks? And I was like, well, where frameworks fits is it's lower licensing cost. So where I can't sell an Ignition license for $25,000, let's say they only got $10,000 or whatever, I could sell Tatsoft because it costs 10, 12 grand. But the bigger issue is speed. Like frameworks is so much faster in the visualization.
It's native.net.
Yeah, it's all native.net. So you literally can do like 60 hertz refreshes on the screen. You know what I mean? You can't do that in Ignition. So there's a reason why, I would do that, right? But with Cognite, I got a couple of issues. Time to value is kind of long, and there's a big, it's not cheap. Cognite doesn't have a land and expand model. There's a bunch of other strategy issues where I'm like, from a technical perspective, do they belong on the quadrant? They do. But does that necessarily mean I'm going to pick them? No, it doesn't. And there are a lot of other, like Litmus. Like I love Litmus's platform, but cost is sometimes weird. Even understanding how much you're going to spend can be weird sometimes. Time to value's got to be short. Total cost of ownership has to be easy to calculate. The licensing model has to be land and expand. I have to be able to land it for free and start paying for it once I'm realizing value. There's all these other considerations that we put in. Maestro Hub. They're not an IoT platform. They're a data ops platform. Do I like Maestro Hub? I love Maestro Hub.
Excellent. And
they have exceptional leadership. The leadership of the organizations you're working with matters. There's no coincidence that if you look at Flow Software and, Graham Welton and Jeff Nepper and that group, when Jeff was at Canary Labs and he was leading go-to-market, Kobe Clegg, who's the CEO at Inductive Automation, right? Leadership matters. Like the values of leadership matters. If you look at Vatzel, part of the reason I'm so high on Litmus now, and you never heard me talk about him, was because I never really engaged with Vatzel. So when I first talked to Litmus, it really sounded like they were building the company to sell it. And then he reached out to me on LinkedIn maybe a year ago, and he's like, how come you don't talk about us? I'm like, well, I did. I met with you guys, and it really sounded like you guys were selling. He's like, we're not. And I'm like, you guarantee me? And he said, I absolutely guarantee you in 5 years, within the next 5 years, there will be no M&A at all whatsoever. I promise you. This is my goal. We had all these meetings. It was a value stuff. Vatzel doesn't think he has all the answers. He thinks the community does. And that they're just a vessel for.
And Vatzel and Litmus, they were huge in helping us set up that community fireside chat in Hanover Messe.
So values matter. So when you guys are looking at this stuff, you really should be asking, like, what does this company stand for? What is it,
Are you going to be speaking at the AFS next week?
Yeah, I have Cognite CDF versus UNS, complementary, completely different models and ideas. Similar ideas, completely different models. And I would not argue that they are complementary. I would argue that conceptually they're similar concepts. You're welcome, Yasir. Love the platform. Yasir is, by the way, he's the founder and developer of Maestro Hub. So I'm speaking at AFS, which is the American Foundry Society in Milwaukee next week, right? Then I'm doing Operations Calling, Tulip's Operations Calling in September. They actually just reached out earlier. I'm doing Mesa, Africa in October. And right now the plan is still to travel to South Africa. The only reason I won't go is if the U.S. State Department at some point says no traveling to South Africa, but otherwise I'll be in South Africa. And then
am I coming to that one?
and the rest of the time it's prove it. We are going to film. So,
because Jared's now he's an engineer. So,
yeah. So, anyway, gang, listen, thank you for joining us. 2 hours, 13 minutes, but it was an important conversation. Please let us know in the comments down below what you thought of the actual formal YouTube video and the LinkedIn video. Like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know which one you want me to analyze.